Grief, you see, is a heavy thing. It is heavier than dragging a whale's body up onto the ice, heavier than enduring a winter that lingers past all hope, heavier even than feeling the sky itself pressing down as if full of words you cannot speak. Most people know how to carry it. They strap it to their backs like a pack of furs. They walk, bent double, until the load lightens. They share the weight with their neighbors. They cry. They keen. They eat the funeral meats. Then, eventually, they stand up straight again. They look at the sun. They say, "Life is for the living." But Kissimmee was not like most people. Kissimmee's heart was not made of muscle and blood, but instead felt like fragile glass and empty echoes. She could sense disaster before it struck, like the first warning crack in the ice or the way the air changes before a storm arrives. And when she loved, it was with the desperate force of a starving wolf, intense and unyielding. She adored Ujurak, whose laugh was like the sound of stones tumbling in a river. Ujurak, who smelled of wood smoke and seal fat. Ujurak, who went out onto the blinding white expanse of the frozen sea to hunt, and simply never came back. The village waited. They waited 1 day. They waited 2. The elders shook their heads, faces carved with hard wisdom. "The ice takes what it wants," they said. "The sea demands its tithe." They mourned Ujurak. They sang the songs to guide his spirit to the aurora. And then the village returned to the business of survival. Nets needed mending. Sledges needed fixing. Children needed feeding. Life is for the living. But Kissimmee could not put the weight down. She sat in their karmak, staring at the empty space where his boots had once rested. The silence was not simply emptiness. It felt like a wild, relentless wind scraping through her skull. It gnawed at her teeth, humming deep within her bones. A pain so vivid it felt physical, leaving her breathless and hungry for relief.
"Come out, Kissimmee,"
her sister, Ceci, begged, standing at the entrance, the light of the midday sun trying to push its way in.
"The grief will eat you if you stay in the dark."
"Let it,"
Kissimmee said. Her voice was dry as old bone.
"Let it eat me down to nothing."
She refused comfort. To her, comfort was poison, a false sweetness that made things worse. Smiling felt like erasing him. Eating seemed to disrespect his memory. She wanted pain, letting it wrap tightly around her soul and sew itself into her flesh. The pain was her last connection to him. She clung to her sorrow with fierce hunger, holding tight to the final burning thread that kept his memory close. In her agony, he was still near. On the 7th day, the pressure became too much. The grief swelled inside her chest, splintering her ribs with its force. She gasped at the weight, choking on air dense with others moving on. She had to escape. She craved air untouched by memory, wild and bitter as the wind. She crawled out of the karmak Ujurak had built for them. She ignored the pitying looks of the villagers, the whispers that followed her like stray dogs. Past the sledge dogs, past the drying racks, past the edge of the packed snow. She walked until she reached the place where the land ended and the restless, dark ocean began. The moon was out, though it was day. It hung in the purple sky, huge and pale, a great unblinking eye. It looked close enough to touch. Kissimmee stood at the edge of the water. The waves slapped against the ice, indifferent and cold.
"Why?"
she thought, but the thought was too small to be heard.
"Come back,"
she thought, but the thought was too weak to change anything. She opened her mouth. She did not mean to scream. She meant to breathe. She meant to ask the world to stop spinning just for a moment, to acknowledge that the center of her universe was gone. But what came out was not a breath. For 7 days a sound had been building inside her, sharp as ice scraping together, born from a longing that burned like fever. When the sound finally escaped, it was a scream. It became a piercing, luminous cry, a wave of grief so raw it felt like it split the air itself. Her spirit seemed to throw itself outward, needing the world to feel the weight of her loss. The sound hit the water, and the water recoiled. The ocean did not react as water usually does. It did not splash. Instead, it seemed to bow under the force of Kissimmee's grief, as if her sorrow was so real and so heavy that it pressed the sea down. But water must move somewhere, so it lifted itself up. A wave. It was one colossal wave, silent, sheer, obsidian black. It rose beyond the ice, beyond cliffs, blotting out the familiar world. Towering, it trembled with her raw, unchecked grief, a mountain of water pressed into form by heartbreak alone. Kissimmee did not run. She did not flinch. She opened her arms.
Take me.
She told the wave.
Drown me. For I am too heavy for this earth.
But the wave did not crash. The wave did not fall. It listened. Sometimes the world changes for those bold enough to speak their true feelings. The wave bent, gentle as a mother's arms, and gathered her up, holding her trembling heart. It did not pull her under. It lifted her, up, past the spray, up, past the circling gulls who shrieked in surprise, up, into the thinning air. The wave became a pillar of water, breaking the rules of gravity as it climbed higher, heading toward the only thing in the sky that seemed vast enough to hold so much sadness. The moon. Kissimmee looked down. She saw her village shrinking to the size of pebbles. She saw the smoke from the fires, thin gray threads. She saw the tiny dots of people running out of their homes, pointing at the impossible tower of water stretching into the heavens. She felt the air grow frigid, then colder still. She felt the silence enfold her, not the suffocating, crushing silence of the abandoned home. This was a new silence, a clean silence, unburdened by expectation or promise, a blank canvas on which nothing was written. She did not look back at the earth. She looked up at the white, cratered face waiting for her.
I am coming.
She whispered to the moon.
Make room for my sadness.
And the moon, lonely and full of dust, opened its arms to catch her.